Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my weekly Lunch and Learn with Jim. Today, we are going to talk about dealing with difficult people. You may or may not have noticed that there are people that disagree slightly with how things should be handled. And during this difficult time, you have people that really dig their heels in or just aren't very pleasant. So I thought it might be a good time, especially since we're quarantined with certain people. It seems like a lot of us are on edge with our own family members even. So we're going to cover people that are difficult, how best to deal with it, and what you can do to keep yourself sane. At least that's the goal. So first off, they're everywhere. Difficult people are unavoidable. They're at the grocery store, in traffic, at work, and in our family. They might even be us. Today we're going to discuss 4 different things. The 6 keys to handling difficult people, 5 difficult personality types, how to deal with difficult relatives, and then difficult family during the holidays. Obviously, right now, that might be tweaked a bit because it's tough to see one another in the holidays, but let's hope for the best and assume that come some of these major holidays in the fall, we'll be back together again. Difficult people are actually bad for our health. They can increase blood pressure, add stress, and increase our cortisol, keep us awake at night, cause overeating, and generally make our lives miserable. But there are 6 keys to handling difficult people that experts recommend. Number 1, stay calm. Whatever you do, stay calm, maintain your composure. Take your time to communicate effectively and not escalate things. Set a constructive tone, interject positive comments when you can, but don't get defensive because that very rarely ends well. Separate the person from the issue. Be a strong problem solver with people skills. So soft on the person, but firm on the issue. Concentrate your energy on problem solving and empathize with the person. Wow, it must not be easy for you to do that, or try and reason with them, or bring it back to them and helping them work through their problem. That might end up helping you in the same way. Pick your battles. Avoid unnecessary problems and complications. If you know someone just can't or won't be convinced, don't try, especially in political climate. We talk all the time here in Positive Conversations and in other groups about how facts don't really matter. People believe what they believe, and it doesn't matter if they have other evidence that says otherwise, they're just going to believe that. So accept the situation. Is it a temporary issue? Is it serious enough to confront? Remember, it's not you, it's them. I have 2 toddlers. One of them insists on wearing shorts regardless of the weather. So if he's not hurting himself and he wants to wear shorts, I guess why not? Let's just go for it. Some battles just aren't worth having. Speak your mind. Difficult people can tend to make you feel uncomfortable or inadequate, but if you're defensive, they have more power. So use I feel like statements. When you do that, I feel little, or I feel like you're not listening to me, or it sounds like. Those statements help a lot, and then they avoid mind reading the person because maybe you're misinterpreting what they're saying. If you say, I feel like you're doing this, or it sounds like this, and they say, no, that's not what I meant at all, maybe the whole thing's a misunderstanding. Use appropriate humor. Diffuse difficult behavior and show problems roll off your back. It also shows superior composure. And then finally, bullies pick on the weak. So if you are passive and compliant, you're a target. They're going to continue that behavior. Get additional support if needed. And remember, bullies are usually victims acting out. Now, there's a video that I played a few years ago. I think it's really applicable. We're going to go to it real quick on YouTube. It's just a 4-minute quick video, but I really do think they say some really positive things.
I'm Stacy. Okay, the sales clerk is snippy, your boss is grouchy, an irritating coworker is coming again. How do you react? It's an important question for your mental health. The person answers is written by Mary Buster, editor in chief of Natural Health magazine. Very good to have you with us. Now, someone that I might find annoying, you might not find annoying. How do you find it? Specific examples in the beginning there. It's like a different salesperson, you're one there, you're trying to find something, and nobody will help you. Mostly ignore you. Strident, demanding bosses, I think most people find it difficult. And then you mentioned this the coworker. Person who just constantly asks you to go, yes, I know what that is so annoying. But it's really anybody who kind of makes you feel pressure and how to achieve it. All of this reminds me of a difficult boss. I always try to get things easy for us. I do say that we shouldn't necessarily try to find common ground with these people. would say that's probably the wrong thing to do, and it may encourage the person's difficult behavior. Really what you want to do is remain neutral. You don't really want to create peaceful ground between yourself and the negative person. You want to protect your own ground. So you don't want to get your emotions higher than they should be. You really want to stay neutral. So if, for instance, you have anger, you want to kind of contain that anger. You want to remind yourself that this person's difficult behavior is not them, not about you. You don't take it personally. You just state the facts. You're assertive without being aggressive. That's how you get what you want from that person. How should we know our emotions when we're faced with these difficult situations? There's a couple of ways that people typically respond to difficult people. One way is to get obsessed, like, oh my gosh, this person shouldn't be difficult, and I need to change it. Well, oh no, that is never going to happen. You just want to say, if the wind blows right, acknowledge that there are always going to be obnoxious, difficult people. There's two instances where you really want to kind of take stock. Another is if you act hurt when someone is difficult with you, because difficult people take advantage of that kind of behavior. They think you want approval, and so they'll just really kind of milk that need for approval. So again, you want to just sort of visualize yourself being indifferent toward this person, that you're neither, you don't need their approval, you don't need to get angry with them, you can just be neutral with them. And that's when you're not going to get what you need from these people. It sounds like the general message is that all you can control is the way you react to these things. You can't control outside circumstances. You can change what's inside and things on the outside will have a good effect. Usually the point of difficulty can it did affect your health. One thing that really happens. Well, there's two things that happen when you're around difficult people. Blood pressure can go up, and you get really high levels of stress. Anytime you know you're more difficult, let's just say difficult boss, you're thinking, oh geez, I want to do this on over me. You might stay up late at night thinking about the competition you're going to have, so that it feels like a competition. So you can, again, you can bring yourself and visualize it so that you get there. You can get to that calm, centered space in yourself. Every encounter with difficult people is going to be ratcheted down so that you can remain calm. So that you don't feel like your heart rate is going up, breathing is getting challenged, and then you're still stressing out. Stress, the cortisol hormone, it gets activated when you're stressed. It's so bad for your health. And stress is bad for us on so many levels. Yeah. So that's one thing. You want to constantly get yourself back to that calm center. Deep breath. And the best, right? Bolster energy, natural health.
So I think she said a lot of great things there. And again, you can only control how you react to something. People, you might say, oh, they're infuriating. Well, it depends. They're infuriating to who? They might do things that are difficult. They might do things that you might seem ridiculous, but you can only control how you react to them. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. All right, there are 5 difficult personalities that tend to kind of be the core of all of these different people. You have dictators, know-it-alls, people that are passive-aggressive, the baby, or the no people. So let's get into what those people are and what they do. Dictators can be hostile, abusive, and intimidating. They always have to be right, and they won't quit until they get their way. We should breathe, let them express their anger. We don't have to match their energy level or their anger, but you also don't want to let them get abusive. State your position clearly and avoid temptation to argue. If you can't win, then don't try. Maybe they just need to vent or feel powerful. Fine, you can let them do that. Know-it-alls. They appear to know more than others. Facts are power to them, so they feel superior. They want to be special and center stage. You might even try, now that we all have smartphones, to call them out on things and say, actually, that's not true. I just looked it up. Usually, I have found that doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to take any wind out of their sails at all. They just keep powering through. But make sure you know the facts. Use their knowledge strategically, ask questions, maybe give them praise, then they might get off their high horse. I haven't found that works. I tend to just ignore it or move on to a different subject, but whatever works for you and your know-it-all. Passive-aggressive people, they take shots and they undercut your authority in devious ways using sarcasm disguised as jokes. Or they might say, I was just kidding, when you know full well it wasn't a joke. They're not direct with their criticism. So we should turn our attention to the issues, not the personalities. Once they realize you won't put up with their snips, they usually stop since they want to avoid confrontation. So if they say, oh man, I wouldn't have done that, I'm just kidding. You can ask them, oh, okay, so what would you have done? Well, no, that's not what I meant. And they might backpedal. Usually, if you address the problem directly, you'll find that they shut down a lot more because they're passive aggressive. If they wanted to confront you directly, they would have. The baby, they see everything negatively. They complain, they whine, nothing is good enough for them. So you should listen, steer toward the facts, which are generally less negative than what they think. Direct to more positive aspects of a situation, and if they can come to a realization on their own, great. And that works for dictators too. Again, some babies, it may not matter what you say, or if you're trying to convince them it's not that bad, they might just have their mind made up that they're going to be upset about it. So there might not be a whole lot you can do, but try whatever you like. No people, they're worse than babies because they aren't just negative, they distrust power and they say, I told you so. They see the downside of every issue. Stay positive, but be realistic. Delay discussing solutions or hypothetical situations because they're probably just going to dismiss everything you bring up anyway. Refuse to argue with them, just stick to the facts. Good advice from George Carlin, never argue with an idiot. They will only bring you down to their level and beat you with experience. So true. All right, so what if I'm related to this person? Things are a lot trickier when you're related to them or you might live with them. Relatives can be weird, family dynamics are really tricky, and they're tougher to distance yourself from these people. They could also play a huge role in your life, and again, you might live with them. So the root of the problem needs to be addressed, and that might require you to look internally first. When we're criticized or attacked, we respond with defensiveness. But sometimes we need to listen rather than problem solve. What is the real issue? Some problems can't be solved and are more like conditions. They simply need to be accepted. Other problems are actually conditions: anxiety, autism, depression, OCD. These issues aren't going to go away, but there are some things you can do. Other times too, I've noticed that if someone, let's say my wife is critical of me or says she wishes that I help out more, and if I get defensive and say, well, I have been helping out, that means that I feel guilty, that I want her to think that I'm helping, or maybe I think I'm doing a good job. But if I genuinely thought I was doing a good job, I probably wouldn't get defensive. I would probably just say, okay, what more do you think I can do? So again, if you look internally, that might help you see what is really bothering you in the situation. Another thing you can do is provide a listening ear. An ear stands for empathize, assert yourself, and respect one another. Empathize. You can empathize without understanding. So maybe you've never been in that situation before, or maybe you don't even agree with them, but you can say things like, oh, I see why you would feel that way, or yeah, that must really be tough. Assert yourself. Speak up about your ideas and feelings. Try and be clear with them. And then respect one another. You don't have to agree, but you can still admit the way that they're feeling is valid, even if you don't necessarily agree. Like, oh, I see you feel that way. Yeah, that must be really tough. I can only imagine what that'd be like. Even if the things that they're having issue with you wouldn't be bothered by or you wouldn't get upset by, that doesn't mean that they're not feeling that. So sometimes it's important to just acknowledge. If you're related to the person, define, verbalize, and enforce the boundaries. You have to stick to it. If you don't want to be treated a certain way, but you keep continuing to allow them to do that, they're going to continue to behave that way. Be honest and transparent with your ground rules. You're not trying to trick them. You're trying to say, listen, when you do this, I don't like that. And if you continue to do this, this is what I'm going to do, or this is what I'm not going to do. And if there's no chance of improved future interactions, just move on. It sounds harsh, but if you've expressed your needs and they have been ignored, you really owe it to yourself to see if you want to continue this relationship. You can love people without liking their actions or some of the ways that they treat you. Also, avoid guilt. This one I think is really, spot on. So if you say, oh, you must really find this upsetting if you feel it necessary to try and make me feel guilty to get what you want. Can we try a more mature way of discussing this? I mean, this is like really at a psychological level, you're really getting deep because you're acknowledging a few different things that they are trying to make you feel guilty. You're calling them out on it, and you're trying to say, can we be more mature about this? Some of that might not go so well, so you might have to be careful with your wording. But if they are trying to make you feel guilty, there's a reason for that. So, what does that mean? So, why do you want me to do this, or how can I help? You don't need to beat the person up about it, but you can put a stop to the use of guilt as a weapon. If you refuse to enter the emotional state of guilt, it will allow you to stay more objective and be more compassionate in seeing that the other person is probably using guilt because he or she suddenly feels powerless. That might be their last line of defense where they don't feel like they have any other options. So their last ditch effort to get you to help is to try and make you feel guilty. Families aren't perfect. Really. The hope that our family will behave or act perfectly isn't realistic, so don't expect perfection. And any attempt to control other people actually puts you under their control. Don't go against your morals or ethics, but don't waste energy trying to make people go against theirs either. Feel what you feel, know what you know, and allow them to do the same. Repeat the mantra, it's not about me. Try not to take things personally. Holidays especially can be stressful and bring up a lot of issues for everyone. Especially right now, everyone's dealing with their own stuff. So if you get snapped at or someone's being critical of you, it probably doesn't have so much to do with you. It has much more to do with them and their current situation and them feeling maybe trapped or isolated or stressed or nervous or worried or whatever. People also take things out on the ones that they love, the ones that they're closest to, the ones they interact with the most. So it's not about you. Thick skin is a must. Only you have control of how and what you feel. Then try and have a game plan. What conversations are you going to try to avoid? Like the YouTube video, if you're dreading talking to a boss or a family member and you know a conversation is going to come up that you really don't want to talk about, maybe have a plan of how you'll respond if it comes up. Maybe just have like a statement in your back pocket of, okay, well, if it gets too much, I can shut it down and just say, you know what, I'm really not interested in talking about this. Or can we move on to something else? Or, I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree. How will you respond if they come up as well as other sensitive topics? If you can periodically remove yourself from a potentially stressful situation, then do so. Find a calming person or an item, consult as needed. So right now, if it's on the phone, obviously you can just hang up the phone. You can call a family member or a friend to help you calm down. If it's in person, it's a little bit more difficult, but again, there are ways to kind of help you through it. So people or family members that understand the situation, they might be able to help you feel a little bit better. Think first, act second. Don't feel like you have to respond to every comment. You can just take it in. Some people, if they're looking to start a fight or they're the aggressor, they're a dictator, they might want you to come back with like a quick snippy comment, and you don't have to engage. You can just let them talk. And sometimes pauses and silence helps them understand things and helps reveal a little bit more. I also think it helps you to stay calm. So take a few moments to process things before you speak. And then debrief. Just like if someone agitates you and you call a friend afterward, talk to someone you trust, or what we've done in my family a few times, you can call a friend and say, all right, worst story wins, or funniest holiday experience, or play dysfunctional family bingo. So if you know there are certain things that are going to come up that agitate you, write them down on a sheet of paper and see what things you correctly predicted. And maybe share that with a friend or family member, like, oh, they only did 3 of the 10 things, or I knew it. I knew they were going to say this. They brought it up. It helps kind of take some of the anger out of it. And you're looking at more as a humorous thing rather than dreading it, because it's kind of funny to look back and see, oh, some of these things I predicted did happen, just like I knew they would. Then the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Sometimes if you want to know the type of person you are, look at the type of people you attract. So who do you surround yourself with? If you surround yourself with negative people, you'll probably most often feel negative. Let difficult people teach you about yourself and how you react. If you think they're 100% of the problem, that means they're also 100% of the solution. And I think that's a really important thing to focus on. If there's certain people that really bother you and they are 100% the problem, then that means they're the whole solution as well. And that's probably not the case. So maybe there's things you can change about yourself, or not put yourself in those situations, or not put them in those situations. So try and look to focus your efforts elsewhere. And then remember again, pick your battles. Choose your battles wisely. Wait to respond if tensions are high. Stay rational. If the issue is irrational, get to the bottom of the real problem. So people that get upset at one another for stupid things, what is the real issue at hand? Is it part of a larger problem? Is it they're stressed? Is it, you guys just aren't getting along at the moment? And keep in mind, words can be misinterpreted, especially in an email. So tone is really difficult in an email or even on the phone. You just don't get the same interaction you do as in person. So reread it, or if you need clarification, ask. Maybe you assume that their tone is much worse and they don't really mean it that way at all. Then finally, support positive change. Encourage people to change, especially when you see an effort is being made. So thank them for that. Hey, I really noticed that you're working on this. Thanks. They may not be all the way there yet, but if you support that change, then that might help them, give them a boost to change even further. Ignoring doesn't really make a behavior go away, but supporting positive change and refusing to indulge behaviors encourages them to learn to change and continue that change. Consider their perspective, demonstrate you can see where they're coming from. Show understanding and think positively. Sometimes people just want to feel heard, and their attitude can completely change once they get that. Bottom line, know when the issue can't be resolved without additional help. Don't be afraid to call in experts, doctors, therapists, psychologists. They're more common than ever. Admitting help is not admitting defeat. There are difficult people everywhere. Many times they can't be avoided. Sometimes, again, the only thing you can control is yourself. I hope some of these things are helpful. Hope that there's some useful things you can take away and utilize in the upcoming months. We hope to see you guys soon. We do have a new June calendar that we're posting. So if you guys are looking up to sign up for more activities or events, just give us a call or email and we will go from there. See you guys soon.